Hey gang, Rodin here. Welcome on back to the Cade and another episode of Suckerpunch Sunday. And for this week, we're going to stay in the vein of the Sega Saturn, and we're going to go back to 1996/1997. We're going to play a game that I, to this point, had never known existed. And I have to admit, it's one of the things that I always love about going back and taking a look at systems that I never personally owned. You know, for as much as I love video games over the decades, in some respects, I had a fairly sheltered life from a lot of them. And as I've said many times, I didn't really get into the Genesis that much, and I certainly didn't get into the Sega Saturn. But what we're going to do this week is we're going to play a game that was, for its time, one of the more novel 3D fighting games. We're going to play Last Bronx. Now, like I said, this game came out in arcades in 1996. It came out on the Sega Saturn in 1997. It hit Japan in August, it hit North America in October, and it hit Europe a couple of days later in October of 97. It was then released on Windows consoles for PC in 1998, and then was reissued in Japan only in 2006 for the PlayStation 2 as part of their Sega Ages series. Apparently it was part of Volume 24, which means they've done quite a lot of them over the years. Now, the general plot of this game is that Last Bronx is set in an alternate version of what's called post-Japanese bubble Tokyo, which I'm assuming is coming out of the big economic boom of the 80s and into the 90s, where youth, disenchantment, and disillusion with Japan's explosive economic and societal progression led into the culmination of the historic violent underground event known as the All-Tokyo Street Wars, an Inuit era where crime and gang warfare is rampant. So, upon the peak of the wars breaking out, a gang known as the Soul Crew made an explosive rise to power, uniting Tokyo's youth and gangs by their philosophy of the free soul and enforcing their will by both negotiations and unstoppable and unmatched fighting prowess. So, it seems like in this game, it is the street gangs in Tokyo trying to become the top dog in what is called the second All-Tokyo Street War Tournament, or the Last Bronx. And in this game, we will be able to play a couple of different characters, and we should, over the course of a half an hour, get fairly far in this game. So, you have Yusaku, Joe, Tommy, Nagi, Zaimoku, Yoko, Kurosawa, and Lisa. I'm just going to start with Yusaku, who is the boss of the street gang Neo Soul from Haneda Airport. He was once the number 3 man of Soul Crew, and he takes it upon his leader's death to finish what the Soul Crew started. Round 1, fight! So I'm going to pause it right here really quick so I can give you a little bit of detail about this game. Now, a couple of things since we played Street Fighter the movie last week and this week. I was able to go back and do a little bit more work on my Sega Saturn emulator, which is called Mednafen, M-E-D-N-A-F-E-N. And I found out that there is a way you've got to install a second-party interface that allows you to configure your controller so it will work with a joystick. So, for purposes of this playthrough, as opposed to last week, we'll be able to play with a proper joystick. Now, something to bear in mind. The Sega Saturn did not have a joystick on its original D-pad. It had like the PlayStation 1, before it came out with the DualShock controllers, it had a standard 4-function D-pad along with its standard configuration of 6 buttons, that you could use for different things. I am playing on an Xbox One controller, so I am able to configure it to play on a thumbstick along with the standard configuration of buttons. So, if you're going to play this game, your results may vary if you play it straight out of the box on an emulator. Just letting you know this up front. I will tell you that if you install the user interface, which again is free, I think it's called Mednafe, M-E-D-N-A-F-F-E, you can then go through and configure your control pad of choice for how you want it. So if it's got a control stick on it, then you can set it up to run that way. I will also warn you, if you go through if you check online and see how you can traditionally configure this game, or configure any console through Mednafen, it's a pain in the neck. I will just save you that grief right now. I'm recording this a lot later than I wanted to, only because I went about 10 good rounds with the original interface set up on this game, just trying to program my controller. It's a nightmare. you're better off being able to understand the physics of Minecraft at this point than trying to program all this stuff in. So do yourself a favor. If you're going to use Nothing, get a user interface to go with it. It's not hard to do, but then once you do it, it makes life a lot easier. Now, let's get back to the game. So, as you can see, it is best 2 out of 3 falls in a conventional fighting attack game, but your players have weapons. So, Tommy has a bow staff, and I have what's essentially a 3-bar nunchaku, which is called a Shinkansen. Or, excuse me, it is a Sansetsukan, is the actual term for it. My bad. Now, you can do your punches, you can do your kicks, but your punches essentially have you utilize the weapons. And you can jump in this game, as I did right there. And it's a fairly fast-paced fighting style. You don't have much time to tear through each opponent. So let's see who we take on next. We will face Nagi, and she has size. Ouch. Now you can go down and do like leg sweeps and body attacks and stuff like that. And you can also do rolls. And there is a way, although it's not entirely easy to do, where you can do grab attacks, throws, stuff like that. Oof. She immediately starts out with a boot to the head. And another one for Jenny in the limb. Oh, and I got her in the top of the head while she was on the ground. Wasn't anticipating that. Now, I'm assuming that this game is like most fighting games in that you simply tear through all your opponents, you get to a boss at the end of it, and that ends the story. There we go. Because you're working with 6 buttons, you have to remember what the configuration is for punch or kick. So on a standard like Xbox or PlayStation controller, it would be my B button is my punch to use the weapon, and your Y button is kick. So if you remember those basic attacks, then it's simply a matter of where you have the position of your controller and how your attacks are dished out. Now, one thing I've noticed that the attacks are fairly redundant in that your basic attack of Yusaku doing that 2-hit swing seems to be my bread and butter, and then I get him with a spin kick as I come back up. So that took care of Joe. But I would imagine if you spend a lot more time really getting to know the layout of this game, then more advanced moves or better moves will become more commonplace. So I put Lisa down, and Lisa uses 2 metal sticks. They look like swords in some angles, but they are sticks. Oof. Ow! That hurt. And for that, I put it with 0.101 of a second. I got it as close as I could before the round ended. I can't cut it much finer than that. So now we have Yoko. And she has tonfas, which are big wooden clubs. I remember, right, tonfas are an Okinawan weapon. They're originally used for, like, farming and agriculture. And then were adopted into martial weapons. Now, as far as graphics go, for the time, I mean, these aren't bad. You have to remember, this was, I think, maybe a year or two after Virtua Fighter came out. I'll have to double check that. But the 3D design of it, while it is still fairly angular and polygonal, multisyllabic word for you, they seem to have started really getting it a bit more refined. That's a big man with a hammer. I do not want him hitting me with that. And the backgrounds aren't bad either. Although the range on them is limited. I mean, you're basically in the immediate background and that's it. I am Thor, god of thunder, as he brains me 3 times to the skull. How I'm not immediately dead after getting hit that many times with a hammer, I don't know. Is he actually going to let me win this? He let me win it. Saimoka didn't do much of anything. Now, the sound in this game, I actually find fairly good. I like the sound effects of the impacts that you have. Round 1, fight! And the music, while it is definitely there in the background, is not so annoying that it gets in the way of you enjoying the game. When in doubt, go the spin kick. I think Kurosawa is using a bokken, and a bokken is essentially a Japanese practice katana. It's made of wood, and while that may not seem lethal, you get hit with a bokken hard enough, like so. Ow! Oh, I can taste my spine. That was awful. Man, he is just tearing me to shreds. Oh. Oh, and he came back with the coup de grace. He does use a bokto, or as I know it usually as a bokken. Now, the fact that the rounds are 30 seconds or less means you do not have a lot of time to waste. You've got to get into it fast. Oh. There we go. So in a lot of ways, it's not like Street Fighter, in which you've got 90 seconds, or even on an unlimited, on some cabinets, you have all the time in the world to take an opponent down. Oh! Then he just gives me the poke, and that's it. There we go. Snap suplex. And he still comes back with the shots to the head. And then puts me right down. Alright, let's try one more time. We're at 15 minutes. And if I can't get by him again, then we will go back to the title screen. Because, ooh, nice parry. Got him again. Then a quick snap and down he goes. If I can do that one more time, I'll be happy. Although it doesn't look like it's going to be happening this time. Oh! He has rearranged my spleen. There we go. Sweep the leg, Johnny. Down. And stay there. Now, this game, when it came out, did fairly well in terms of rankings. Aggregate score on game rankings is 71%, so it got a low C. We have Red Eye now. He's got blue tonfas. Oh. Ow. Oh. I was taking him to school, too, and he just completely put me in my place there. There we go. Ow. Swing low. So in other reviews, All Game Magazine gave this 3 out of 5 stars, while GameSpot only gave it a 4 out of 10. So you either found this game decent, or it seemed like most places didn't like it. Draw! So now we go to sudden death at 1-1. And the first one put him down. I was not expecting that to happen. Well, and it looks like we finished the game. I was not expecting that to be the case, but that went fairly quickly. So as I'm going through this, Next Generation, when they reviewed the arcade version, they described it as a grittier and in some ways more inventive product than the sometimes overly smooth efforts of what Sega's 3D division, AM2, was putting out at the time. They praised the subtle techniques, the use of same intuitive 3-button configuration, challenging opponent AI, fluent animation, and intense sound effects. I would agree with those last 3. Assessments of the Saturn's port technical qualities, though, were moderately positive. They praised the smooth frame rate, which I agree with. The high resolution, I would agree with that as well. Let me put my name in here. But Sega Saturn magazine said the port has some jaw-dropping visuals virtually indistinguishable from the coin-op original, and Next Generation attributed the compromises the port made as a sign that developers are approaching the asymptotic side of the Saturn's graphic curve, whatever that means. I think that meant that they didn't think the graphics were going to be quite as good on this one as it was based on the arcade cabinet. Alright, so we'll try Saturn mode. And this time I will try... I'll try Kurosawa, because Kurosawa seemed fairly ominous in that last game, and he was fairly stout. And immediately just the three-part swing. Now, when Next Generation reviewed the PC version of this game, they stated it's too bad Sega dropped the ball because this could have been a contender. So apparently, by comparison to even this and obviously the arcade cabinet, the Windows version did not hold up. Ooh! Lisa put me down. Now I wonder why I'm only being able to get away with using the punch and not using my bucket. So I'd very much like to against Lisa, because that's kind of what I have it for. And instead, she took me apart. Okay, so maybe that wasn't the best idea. But let's try again. Boot to the head. Okay, maybe Kurosawa's not the guy I should take on that. Oh. Alright, let me have a rethink on that one. Lisa seems very much a counterpuncher here. I'm giving her openings and then she's going right for it. Now, one fairly annoying thing is that because of the way the attacks are configured, unless you really get stuck in the weeds here and understand how this all works, it can get difficult to figure out between characters. Like, Yusaku, I liked him because using the Sensoken, you can attack fairly quickly and then balance that out between your punches with your weapon strikes and your kicks. Alright, so, that's not what I wanted, so, hang on. Let's go back to the title screen.
Last Bronx. Last Bronx.
There we go. Alright, we'll try Lisa. We haven't played a female character in this game yet. Give the full credit on that. And see what we can do.
Round one. Fight.
Oof. There we go. So if you can figure out how to stack attacks like you can in most fighting games. Oof. Snap suplex. Don't like that. So go do it again. Oh. Ow. And he put me down. Okay, one more time.
Round three. Fight.
off. Set him up to take him out, and that didn't happen. So, well, we are 25 minutes thereabouts, so we might as well call it good here. But that, everybody, is Last Bronx from 1997 for the Sega Saturn. Now, is this a good game? For its time, I wouldn't put it up there in the upper echelon of games, but I like that it is a weapon-based martial combat game in a similar vein to, say, like Samurai Showdown or Soul Calibur or even Battle Arena Toshinden, as opposed to a straight hand-to-hand fighting game like your Street Fighters, your Mortal Kombats, and so on. Sometimes I like having that differentiation between the two, where you can have, you can take advantage of different skills and different means to attack an opponent and be able to have a fight. So, in that regard, I like that. Drawbacks, again, the controls are going to take a while to get used to it, because as you can see, especially in the demo screens, the characters are able to do things that realistically, as a player, you're not able to do until you really figure out a lot more nuance of how everybody functions. But that's par for the course with most fighting games. I mean, that's, you know, how long did it take you to really learn the ins and outs of playing multiple characters in Street Fighter 2 or Mortal Kombat? It's a baked-in feature, and if anything, it gives you more incentive to get stuck in and figure out how your favorite characters work and how new characters work. I think if you gave me a couple of weeks, I might get a little bit more attuned to how everybody functions from round to round. Again, I do like the graphics, and I like this animation that they have incorporated in here. You know, the Sega Saturn, say what you will about it, but it did have enough punch to be able to power stuff like this and make it look fairly seamless. The drawback is obviously these huge loading screens and whatnot. Is this a game they could make today? Yeah, they could. I mean, fighting games are still in fashion, but they have tapered off quite a lot in the last 20 years. You know, you still get King of Fighters, you still get Street Fighter, you still get Mortal Kombat. But even franchises like Soul Calibur, that hasn't been one in a long time that I can remember. Samurai Showdown's kind of gone the way of the dodo, and I don't think this would be much different, especially because AM2, I mean, Sega doesn't really create games that much anymore, if at all, outside of the occasional Sonic game. So it would take a lot, I think, to get the people who worked on a game like this to do it. Otherwise, you would have to go to an independent studio and have them start everything over from scratch. That said, I think it could be an interesting change of pace, but would it draw enough to be a return on the investment? I can't say it would be. And especially nowadays, given the state of the video game market and how just it's all or nothing, it would be a very, very high risk gamble for any developer to try and take something like this on now. But if you want to give it a try, like I said, I'm playing this on the Bidnafin emulator. It's a free emulator. But like I said at the beginning, make sure you have everything set up properly so you can use your controller of choice to the fullest. So if you're playing with a joystick, make sure you load a UI that allows you to calibrate it for a game like this. But that again is Suckerpunch Sunday for this week. Thank you very much for tuning in, as well as to our kind of break yesterday in Sports Saturday, where we got our prep work done for Season 2 of NFL 2K2 on the Sega Dreamcast, as we carry on with our dynasty of trying to build the New England Patriots dynasty of the 2000s, in which they have won 3 Super Bowls in the first 4 years, and then obviously went on to win 3 more. But this time we're doing it without the existence of Tom Brady. So also be sure to tune in for our ongoing playthrough of Super Robot Wars Alpha Gaiden that will pick up again tomorrow, and we'll have a new episode again on Wednesday. We're only about, I think, 16, 17 episodes into that. We've got a long way to go in that game. That's one that's going to be I wouldn't be surprised if that one hits 50, if not 60 episodes by the time we're done. So realistically, we're barely a third of the way through it. And it's been a lot of fun to play it, and I hope you guys have enjoyed watching it. I know it's not the usual fare on most of these gaming channels of playing a strategy-based game like that, but that's one of the reasons why we chose to be different, and that's one of the reasons why we like doing what we do, is that we kind of go against the grain in that regard, and don't play the same games that everybody else does. Nothing against them. You know, people who play more streamlined games, more power to them. I watch them as much as you do, but we like to try and go in a different direction where we can and bring you something that might be something you're not exactly familiar with. So be sure to follow us on social media through Instagram and Threads at Ronan's RetroCade to help spread the word about us as we continue to grow this channel and make it bigger and better. Again, a massive shout out to everybody who's subscribed. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen, yours makes no difference, a 30% jump in our subscriber base, which we could not have foreseen happening that fast. We're certainly not going to say no to it, and we're not going to turn it away. If we are massively grateful that more people are checking us out and hitting that subscribe button. It's not going to help us in terms of like making money or anything on it, but that was never what the goal of this channel was about for any of us. So we just love video games, we love playing them, and we love talking about them and showing you ones, like we said, may not be ones you've experienced before, but now you get a chance to see them for the first time. In the meantime, I've done enough yapping for one Sunday. My name is Ronan. It's been great to spend this Suckerpunch Sunday with you. Be safe, be well, happy gaming. We'll talk to you tomorrow as we dive back in to Super Robot Wars Alpha Gaiden. Bye.